Shalom. This video is about Judaism and intermarriage. What does Judaism say about it? Well, first of all, it's prohibited by the Torah and the prophets and the codes of Jewish law. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 3 prohibits it as a mitzvah. Then Nehemiah chapter 10 prohibits it. And Maimonides, based on these sources, said it's prohibited. But in reality, Jews have always intermarried. We have the scene in the book of Ezra in the Bible where Ezra says to the Jews coming back to Jerusalem from exile and the Jews living there, get rid of your non-Jewish wives. So obviously Jews have always intermarried. And today in Western society, in the free society, the rates are somewhere around half of all young Jews marrying non-Jews who do not convert. So what is the official view of what do we do with this situation? And is it racist? Is it wrong? Well, first of all, it's not racist because Jews aren't a race. It's different than saying don't marry a black person. Plenty of black Jews. Ethiopia, etc., and brown Jews and yellow Jews, and not all Jews are Caucasian. In fact, in Israel, half the Jews have the origins in the Arab world. So why does the Torah prohibit it, and what's the view about it? Well, if you think the Jews have a right to exist, then you want them to exist, and when you intermarry, it's much more difficult to raise Jewish children and Jewish families, statistically. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't Jewish families, intermarried families, raising Jewish children. We have them many in our synagogue. And as you look at the younger grades of most religious schools, you have that phenomenon where the non-Jewish parent is schlepping the kids to Hebrew school. But it is more difficult. And then sometimes you have the situation where the non-Jew goes to church and then the children are split. Couples have this, in my opinion, ridiculous idea about raising the kids in both religions. Completely confusing. So that's one of the main reasons why it's a big problem. We want the Jewish people to thrive and survive, and it makes it much more difficult. Roughly 1/3 of the intermarried couples claim, or a fourth, that they're raising Jewish children, and so far it's very difficult to show evidence of Jewish grandchildren of intermarried couples. That being as it may, what do we do with the phenomenon that half of all young Jews are marrying? In every family there are intermarriages, probably. Well, we warmly welcome them. And not all communities do, but certainly the Reform and Reconstructionist communities have, and the conservative movement is now making a much more aggressive effort to welcome them and bring them into our communities. In a conservative synagogue, technically the non-Jew can't be a member because it's a Jewish synagogue after all, but they participate fully in the life of the congregation. There are some rituals in the service they can participate in and some they can't, just like a non-Jew doesn't take communion. I mean, a Jew doesn't take communion in a church. And that varies by synagogue by synagogue. Now, in terms of the status of the children, of course, I have other videos on the status of Jewish children, but in the main, according to Reform and Reconstructionists, if the father's Jewish or their mother's Jewish and the child's raised as a Jew, they're Jewish. But that's not traditional Judaism. Conservative and Orthodox say the child has to have a Jewish mother or be converted. And we do a lot of conversions of children whose mothers were not Jewish and haven't converted, but the parents want to have the child as Jewish. So in our synagogue, the child has to be a Jewish, either by the birth of the mother or converted to have a life cycle bar bat mitzvah. Now, about rabbis performing intermarriages, well, Reform and Reconstructionist rabbis have the option. Some do, some don't. Conservative rabbis do not have the option. We're forbidden to by our rules of ordination and our rabbinical assembly associations. Orthodox rabbis wouldn't. But that doesn't mean, because I can't preside or be present at an intermarriage, that I don't warmly welcome intermarried couples to the congregation and work with them to help them have Jewish lives. So I hope that explains a little bit about the view of intermarriage in Judaism. It is forbidden by Jewish law. There are many things that are forbidden by Jewish law and many things that are supported by Jewish law. Of course, Jews violate mitzvot regularly, all kinds of mitzvot. We try and do the best we can to inspire adherence to Jewish tradition, but when people don't, we work with them and, of course, welcome them warmly. It's called Keruv, and trying to have them raise Jewish families. And we want the Jewish people to thrive and survive, and I know all of those interested have the same goal in mind. It's a question of how you get there. And if there's any questions about it, and you have any questions about your circumstances, feel free to email me at rabbi@ehnt.org. Shalom.